Queen Zarathul stood before the massive view screen of her flagship, watching the blue-green planet slowly rotate beneath them. Earth. The very name sent ripples of confusion through her crystalline consciousness. For 3 cycles now, her vast armada had been positioned at the edge of this system, studying these peculiar creatures called humans. The Veltar Empire stretched across 17 star systems, and Zarathul had ruled it with an iron fist for over 2 centuries. Her people were warriors born, standing 9 feet tall with chitinous exoskeletons that could deflect most energy weapons. Their forearms ended in razor-sharp claws, and their compound eyes could see across multiple light spectrums. They were apex predators who had conquered every species they encountered. Until now. The humans were different, smaller, weaker, with soft pink skin that seemed impossibly fragile. They had only 2 arms, 2 eyes, and moved with what appeared to be clumsy inefficiency compared to the Veltar. Yet somehow, in their first 3 encounters, human ships had either escaped or fought the Veltar to a standstill. It made no sense. "Your Majesty," came the gravelly voice of General Korthak, her most trusted military advisor. "The reconnaissance data from the 4th planet is ready for your review." Zarathul turned her massive form toward him, her exoskeleton clicking softly. "What did our scouts discover?" "The humans are even more puzzling than we initially believed. They fight with weapons that should be inferior to ours, yet they achieve impossible victories. Their tactics are unpredictable, sometimes seeming like pure chaos, yet somehow effective. Most disturbing of all," he paused, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Speak freely, General. They save their wounded. Even in the heat of battle, they risk everything to rescue fallen comrades. Our behavioral analysts cannot understand why they would weaken their fighting force for creatures who can no longer contribute to the battle." This information stirred something deep within Zarathul's memory, like a distant echo from another life. She pushed the feeling aside and focused on the tactical implications. What of their technology? Inferior in most ways, but they use it creatively. They combine systems in ways our engineers say should not work, yet somehow do. They modify their equipment during combat, adapting faster than our algorithms can predict. Zarathul moved to her command throne, carved from a single piece of black crystal mined from her home world's core. The throne had been in her family for generations, each queen adding her own modifications. As she settled into it, her claws automatically found the familiar grooves worn by countless hours of contemplation. "There is something else, Your Majesty," Korthak continued. "Our deep space monitors have detected a single human vessel approaching our position. It appears to be unarmed." "Unarmed?" Zarathul's compound eyes shifted to focus entirely on the general. "Are you certain?" "Yes, Your Majesty. It broadcasts on multiple frequencies, using mathematical sequences as a universal language. The translation algorithms indicate it carries a message specifically for you." This was unprecedented. No species had ever approached the Veltar fleet voluntarily, certainly not with a message for their queen. "What does this message contain?" "That is unclear. The human requests permission to come aboard and deliver it in person. Our scans show a single life form aboard the vessel." Zarathul was quiet for a long moment, her mind racing through possibilities. This could be a trap, though she could not imagine what damage a single unarmed human could do aboard her massive flagship surrounded by 10,000 of her finest warriors. More likely, it was some sort of diplomatic overture, perhaps an attempt at surrender. "Your orders, Your Majesty?" Something about this situation felt familiar, though she could not place why. There was an echo in her memory, faint but persistent, like the sound of distant bells. A feeling of gratitude? Impossible. The Veltar did not feel gratitude toward prey species. Allow the vessel to dock in Bay 7. Have the human escorted to the audience chamber under heavy guard. I will hear this message, though I suspect it will be a waste of time. At once, Your Majesty. As Korthak left to carry out her orders, Zarathul found her thoughts drifting backward, to a time before she was queen, when she was merely Princess Zarathul, heir to the throne but not yet crowned. It was over 50 cycles ago now, during her trial period when she was required to prove her worthiness to rule. She had been leading a small expedition to the Outer Rim, investigating reports of a new species that might be suitable for conquest or slavery. Their ship had suffered a catastrophic malfunction in an asteroid field, life support failing, hull breached in multiple places. Most of her crew had been killed instantly when the main reactor exploded. She remembered floating in the cold vacuum of space, her emergency life support failing, watching her ship break apart around her. Death had seemed certain. The Veltar were tough, but they were not immune to the lethal environment of space. Then, impossibly, another ship had appeared. Not Veltar design, nothing she recognized. It had moved with surprising agility through the asteroid field and deployed some sort of rescue pods. She remembered being pulled aboard, barely conscious, her life support down to its last few minutes. The being who had saved her was strange. Bipedal, much smaller than any Veltar, wearing a full environmental suit that obscured its features. It had spoken in a language she did not understand. But its actions were clear. It had patched her life support, given her emergency oxygen, and even shared its own food and water during the long journey to the nearest Veltar outpost. For 3 days, this creature had cared for her, asking nothing in return. When they reached the outpost, it had simply left, refusing any reward or even acknowledgement. She had tried to follow, to learn more about her savior, but the alien ship had vanished into hyperspace before she could act. She had never spoken of this incident to anyone. A future queen of the Veltar saved by an unknown alien? It would have been seen as weakness, a sign that she was unfit to rule. So she had reported that she had escaped on her own, using an emergency pod from her ship. But she had never forgotten her mysterious savior. Sometimes, in quiet moments, she wondered what had become of that strange, small being who had shown such inexplicable kindness. The sound of her chamber doors opening interrupted her memories. Korthak entered, followed by 6 of her elite guards escorting a figure in a simple gray uniform. The human. Zarathul studied the creature carefully. It was indeed small, perhaps half her height, with pale skin and short brown hair on its head. Its proportions seemed all wrong to her eyes, too narrow, too fragile. It moved with a strange flowing motion that was quite different from the efficient, precise movements of her people. But there was something about the way it carried itself, a certain confident posture that seemed familiar. "Your Majesty," the human spoke, and its voice was carried through the translation systems. "Thank you for agreeing to see me. My name is Captain James Chen of the Earth Defense Force." The human performed what her cultural databases identified as a bow, a gesture of respect. This surprised her. Most species either cowered in terror before the Veltar or attempted to display dominance. This human showed respect without submission. "Speak your message, human," she commanded, her voice carrying the authority of one born to rule. "Your Majesty, I come with an offer of peace between our peoples. Humans have no desire for conflict with the Veltar Empire. We seek only to defend our home and to coexist peacefully in this galaxy." Zarathul almost laughed. Peace? From a species they could crush? And why should the Veltar consider peace with humans? What could your species possibly offer us? The human reached into its uniform and withdrew a small device. Her guards tensed, but she gestured for them to remain calm. It was clearly not a weapon. "Because, Your Majesty, we've met before." The device projected a holographic image into the air between them. Zarathul felt her entire world shift as she recognized the scene. It was her, floating in space 50 years ago, dying in the wreckage of her ship. And there, clearly visible in the rescue footage, was a figure in an environmental suit pulling her to safety. The figure in the hologram turned toward the camera, and for a brief moment its face was visible through the helmet visor. It was older, but unmistakably the same face as the human standing before her now. "You," she whispered, her voice barely audible even to herself. "Yes, Your Majesty. I was Lieutenant James Chen then. On a Deep Space Patrol mission when we detected the explosion. My captain ordered me to investigate." The human paused, seeming to gather its thoughts. "I never expected to see you again, but when our intelligence identified you as the Queen of the Veltar Empire, I knew I had to try to prevent a war between our peoples." Zarathul felt as though the deck beneath her feet had disappeared. The small, fragile creature standing before her was the same being who had saved her life, who had shared its food and water, who had asked for nothing in return. A human. Her savior had been human. The revelation struck her with the force of a plasma cannon blast. All her assumptions about humans, about their weakness and insignificance, suddenly seemed questionable. If this one human could show such courage and compassion 50 years ago, what might the rest of their species be capable of? She stared at Captain Chen, her compound eyes taking in every detail of his face, comparing it to her memories of that long-ago rescue. There was no doubt. This was him. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why did you save me?" The human seemed surprised by the question. "Because you needed help. Because it was the right thing to do. Because life is precious, regardless of what species it belongs to." Such a simple answer. Such a human answer, she was beginning to realize. Around the chamber, her guards and advisors watched the exchange with barely concealed confusion. They could see that something significant was happening, but they did not understand what. Zarathul rose from her throne, her massive form towering over the small human. But for the first time in her life, she did not feel her size gave her an advantage. This tiny creature had proven himself to be stronger than her in the way that truly mattered. "General Korthak," she said without taking her eyes off Captain Chen. "Clear the chamber. I wish to speak with the human alone. Your Majesty, I must protest. It could be dangerous. Now, General." The steel in her voice brooked no argument. Within moments, the chamber was empty except for Zarathul and the human who had saved her life. So Captain James Chen stood perfectly still in the vast chamber, acutely aware that he was alone with one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Queen Zarathul towered above him, her crystalline exoskeleton catching the light from the chamber's bioluminescent fixtures. Her 4 arms hung at her sides, claws extended but not in a threatening manner. More like she was processing something too large for her mind to fully grasp. "You remember," she said finally, her translated voice carrying an emotion he could not identify. "Every detail," James replied. "You were dying when I found you. Your life support was down to maybe 10 minutes. You fought me at first, tried to push me away even though I was trying to save you." Zarathul's compound eyes shifted. A behavior James had learned indicated deep thought among her species. "I believed you were attempting to capture me, to take me as a prize for your people. I figured that out eventually. You nearly broke my arm when I first tried to help you into the rescue pod." James allowed himself a small smile at the memory. "You were incredibly strong, even while dying. Yet you persisted." "Of course I did. You needed help." That simple statement seemed to affect the alien queen profoundly. She moved away from him, walking to the massive view screen that dominated one wall of her audience chamber. From here, Earth was visible as a small blue dot against the star field. "Do you understand what you have done, James Chen?" she asked, without turning around. "I've probably complicated both of our lives considerably," he admitted. She made a sound that his translator interpreted as laughter, though it was unlike any sound of amusement he had ever heard from a human. An understatement of remarkable proportions. Zarathul turned back to face him, and James was surprised to see what almost looked like uncertainty in her alien features. For 50 cycles, I have ruled the Veltar Empire with absolute authority. I have conquered 17 star systems. I have enslaved entire species. I have ordered the deaths of billions of beings who opposed us. She began to pace, her movements surprisingly graceful for such a massive creature. All of this was justified by our superiority. We are stronger, faster, more intelligent than the species we encounter. We have the right to rule because we have the power to rule. This is the foundation of everything my people believe. James waited, sensing there was more she needed to say. But you, she continued, stopping to look directly at him, you shatter that foundation. You saved the life of a future empress of a species you had never seen before, in territory that did not belong to your people, gaining nothing for yourself. You asked for no reward, made no demands, sought no advantage. That's what people do, James said quietly. When someone needs help, you help them. No, Zarathul's voice carried absolute conviction. That is what humans do. In all our encounters across the galaxy, we have never seen such behavior from any other species. They fight us, they flee from us, they attempt to bargain with us, or they submit to us, but they do not help us. She moved closer to him, close enough that he had to crane his neck to look up at her. Tell me about your species, James Chen. Tell me why you are so different. James considered how to explain humanity to an alien empress who had conquered most of the galaxy. We're not different, Your Majesty. We're probably the most ordinary species in the galaxy. We're weak, we're small, we die easily, and we fight among ourselves constantly. Yet your ships have fought mine to stand still. Your tactics confuse our greatest military minds. Because we fight differently, James said. We don't fight to conquer or to prove we're superior. We fight to protect the things we care about, our families, our homes, our freedom. That makes us dangerous in ways that pure strength never could. Zarathul's claws clicked against the crystal floor as she thought. Your weapons are inferior to ours. Yes, but we use them in ways you don't expect. We modify them constantly, adapt them to new situations. A human engineer will rebuild a plasma rifle in the middle of a battle if it means saving their squad. We call it improvisation. And your willingness to rescue fallen comrades during combat? Our analysts called it a tactical weakness. James felt a flare of something that might have been anger, but he kept his voice level. We don't leave our people behind. Ever. A human soldier will charge through enemy fire to pull a wounded comrade to safety, not because it's tactically sound, but because it's right. Even if it means their own death? Especially then. The alien queen was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. On Veltar Prime, we have a saying, the strong consume the weak, for this is the way of the universe. It has guided our expansion for 1,000 cycles. We have a saying too, James replied. The strong protect the weak. That's what makes civilization possible. Two philosophies that cannot coexist. Maybe they don't have to be in opposition. Maybe strength can serve protection instead of domination. Zarathul made that strange laughing sound again. You speak as though you believe the Veltar Empire could change its fundamental nature. I think any intelligent species is capable of change. The question is whether they want to. The queen walked back to her throne, but she did not sit. Instead, she placed one clawed hand on its armrest and stared at the ancient crystal. This throne has been occupied by 63 queens of the Veltar Empire. Each one has expanded our territory, increased our power, brought glory to our people through conquest. "And what have 63 generations of conquest brought your people?" James asked. The question clearly caught her off guard. "What do you mean? Are your people happy? Do they feel secure? Do they have families they love, art they create, dreams they pursue, or do they only know war and domination?" Zarathul's silence stretched for nearly a minute. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter than before. "My people are warriors. We know only strength and battle." "By choice or by necessity?" I had never considered there might be a difference. James took a careful step closer. "Your Majesty, may I ask you a personal question?" She gestured for him to continue. "In all your years of rule, all your conquests and victories, what has brought you the most satisfaction?" Another long pause. "I had expected you to ask about my greatest triumph in battle." "I didn't. No. You asked about satisfaction." She seemed to taste the word as though it were foreign to her. There was a time, perhaps 20 cycles ago, a plague had struck one of our outer colonies. The local garrison commander requested permission to evacuate and abandon the world. What did you decide? I sent medical ships instead. Emergency supplies, field hospitals, our best doctors. We lost more resources saving that colony than we would have gained from conquering a new world. She paused. But when the plague was defeated and the colonists sent me messages of gratitude, that felt different than victory in battle. James nodded. That was you choosing to protect the weak instead of abandoning them. I told myself it was simply good governance, protecting valuable resources. Was it? Zarathul looked at him sharply. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe you're more capable of understanding humans than you think. Maybe the capacity for compassion isn't uniquely human. Maybe it's just been buried under centuries of the strong consume the weak. The alien queen turned back to the view screen, staring at Earth. If what you suggest were true, if the Veltar were capable of change, what would you propose? A trial period, James said immediately. Pick one system. One where your people and mine can interact peacefully. Trade instead of conquest. Cultural exchange instead of domination. See what happens. And if it fails, then you'll have lost nothing but time. But if it succeeds, he let the implication hang in the air. You ask me to risk everything my people believe in on the possibility that there is a better way. I'm asking you to consider that the being who saved your life 50 years ago might represent something worth exploring, not because humans are superior, but because maybe there's strength in kindness, power in protection, and wisdom in working together instead of fighting each other. Zarathul remained silent for a long time, staring at the small blue world that had somehow produced creatures capable of showing mercy to their enemies. Finally, she turned back to him. The Veltar High Council will never accept such a proposal. They would see it as madness, weakness, betrayal of everything we are. Then don't ask them, James said. You're the queen. Make an executive decision. Choose one small system, somewhere on the edge of your empire where failure won't threaten your core worlds. If it works, you can always expand the program. If it doesn't, you can end it, and no one will question your wisdom in trying all possible approaches before total war. You make it sound simple. The best solutions usually are. It's implementing them that's hard. Zarathul moved back to her throne, and this time she did sit, her massive form settling into the ancient crystal seat worn smooth by generations of rulers. James Chen, in my long life, I have made many difficult decisions. I have ordered attacks that killed millions. I have signed treaties that enslaved entire species. I have shaped the destiny of countless worlds. She leaned forward, fixing him with her compound gaze. But you present me with perhaps the most difficult choice I have ever faced. Not whether to show mercy to an enemy, but whether to question the very foundation of everything my people have built. Sometimes the hardest choices are the most important ones. Indeed. She was quiet for another moment. There is a system called Kepler 442. 3 habitable worlds recently brought under our control. The native species was relocated rather than enslaved, and the worlds are currently used only for resource extraction. It is remote enough that experiments could be conducted without drawing too much attention from the High Council. James felt his heart rate increase. What kind of experiments? A joint research station. Veltar and human scientists working together to study the unique properties of the system's planets. Cultural exchange, as you called it. Trade in knowledge rather than conquest. That could work. It could also be a disaster that results in war between our species. It could. But it could also be the beginning of something unprecedented in galactic history. Zarathul stood from her throne, her decision made. Very well, James Chen. I will authorize this experiment. But understand this. If your people betray this trust, if they use this opportunity to spy on us or harm us in any way, there will be consequences beyond your imagination. Understood. And if it succeeds, then perhaps, she said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of tradition she was contemplating abandoning, perhaps it is time for the Veltar Empire to learn what it truly means to be strong any years ago. 6 months after the meeting between Queen Zarathul and Captain James Chen, the Kepler 442 system had become the most watched location in 2 sectors of the galaxy. The Joint Research Station, officially designated as Installation Unity, floated in orbit around the second planet, a gleaming structure that represented the first peaceful cooperation between humans and the Veltar Empire in recorded history. James, now promoted to Admiral Chen for his role in negotiating the unprecedented agreement, stood in the observation deck of the human section of the station. Through the reinforced transparasteel, he could see Veltar and human scientists working side by side in the external laboratories, their environment suits making them look like strange cousins sharing the same workspace. The initial weeks had been challenging. Both species had needed time to adjust to each other's presence, to overcome instinctive fears and suspicions built up over generations. But gradually, something remarkable had begun to happen. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the lead human xenobiologist, approached him with a data pad in her hand and excitement in her eyes. "Admiral, you need to see this." James turned from the viewport. "Good news, I hope?" "Better than good. The Veltar scientists have shared their bioengineering techniques with us. Combined with our genetic therapy protocols, we've made a breakthrough that could revolutionize medicine for both species." She handed him the pad, which displayed complex molecular diagrams. The Veltar ability to regenerate damaged tissue, combined with human stem cell research, has led to treatments that could eliminate most degenerative diseases. We're talking about curing conditions that have plagued both our species for millennia. And the Veltar are willing to share this? More than willing. Dr. Kethmore says that working with humans has given her research team new perspectives they never would have developed on their own. She actually used the word inspiring in her report. James smiled. That was a word he never expected to hear a Veltar use in reference to humans. Any word from Earth Command on the cultural exchange program? The linguists are making incredible progress. It turns out that Veltar mathematical concepts can solve some of our most complex engineering problems, while our artistic traditions are apparently fascinating to them. Did you know they don't have music? I didn't. Well, they do now. Lieutenant Harrison has been teaching them guitar, and apparently they have perfect pitch due to their enhanced hearing. They're creating compositions that are, she paused, searching for the right word, otherworldly. Before James could respond, his communicator chimed with an incoming priority message. The holographic image of Queen Zara Thul appeared in the air before him, though this was a much smaller, more intimate projection than the imposing figure he had met months ago. "Admiral Chen," her translated voice carried what had become familiar warmth. "I trust the station continues to operate smoothly?" "Beyond all expectations, Your Majesty. Dr. Martinez was just briefing me on some remarkable breakthroughs your scientists have achieved." "Indeed. I have received similar reports from my researchers, but I did not contact you to discuss scientific progress. I have news that will interest you." James gestured for Dr. Martinez to join the conversation. "Please, go ahead." "The Veltar High Council has taken notice of the Kepler 442 experiment. Initially, there was skepticism, as I expected. Some members called it a waste of resources. Others questioned my judgment. But the results speak for themselves." The Queen's image shifted slightly, and James could see she was in what appeared to be a private chamber rather than the formal audience hall where they had first met. "General Korthiak presented a comprehensive report to the Council 3 days ago. The technological advances, the resource efficiency improvements, the cultural benefits. Even the most conservative Council members cannot deny that cooperation has yielded greater results than conquest would have in this system." What was their decision? They have authorized expansion of the program to 3 additional systems. Furthermore, they have requested formal diplomatic contact with Earth's government to negotiate a broader peace treaty. James felt his knees go weak. "Your Majesty, that's incredible news." "There is more. The Council has also voted to implement new policies regarding conquered species. Instead of slavery or relocation, we will offer partnership agreements. Those who wish to maintain their independence but engage in trade and cultural exchange will be allowed to do so." Dr. Martinez grabbed James's arm, her eyes wide. This was beyond anything they had hoped for when the experiment began. "However," Zarathul continued, and her tone became more serious, "there has been some resistance. A faction led by Prince Thekvar, my nephew and heir presumptive, believes these changes represent dangerous weakness. He has the support of approximately 30% of the Council and significant influence with our military leaders." "Is there a threat to the program?" "Not immediately, but Prince Thekvar has requested permission to visit Installation Unity to assess the experiment personally. I could not refuse without creating a political crisis." James understood the implication. If the prince was looking for reasons to end the cooperation program, he would likely find them. "When will he arrive?" "His ship will reach the system in 5 days. Admiral Chen, I must ask something of you and your people. Show him what you showed me. Demonstrate that strength and compassion are not mutually exclusive." "We'll do everything we can, Your Majesty." After the communication ended, James immediately called for a meeting of all department heads. Within an hour, the station's main conference room was filled with both human and Veltar personnel. Dr. Kethmore, the lead Veltar scientist, spoke first. Her translator had been adjusted to carry emotional nuances, something that had developed over months of working closely with humans. "Prince Thekvar is known for his rigid adherence to traditional Veltar values. He views cooperation with other species as beneath our dignity." Commander Beth Torres, the station's military liaison, leaned forward. "What kind of demonstration would convince someone like that?" "Show him what we've built here," said Dr. Martinez. "The medical breakthroughs, the technological advances, the efficiency improvements." "No," Dr. Kethamore's response surprised everyone. "The prince will dismiss those as things we could have achieved on our own given time. You must show him something uniquely human." "Such as?" The Veltar scientists' mandibles clicked in what James had learned was their equivalent of a thoughtful expression. "Show him why you saved our queen 50 years ago. Show him the strength that comes from protecting the weak." Over the next 5 days, the station's personnel worked frantically to prepare. They reorganized schedules to highlight the most successful collaborative projects. They prepared presentations showcasing the technological and scientific advances. They even organized a cultural performance featuring the hybrid music that had emerged from human and Veltar cooperation. But James kept thinking about Dr. Kethmore's words. How do you demonstrate compassion to someone who sees it as weakness? Prince Thekvar arrived exactly on schedule, his ship a sleek Veltar destroyer that dwarfed the research station. The prince himself was younger than Queen Zarathul, but no less imposing, standing even taller than the queen with more pronounced cranial ridges that marked him as coming from a particularly ancient bloodline. The initial tour went as expected. The prince examined everything with cold efficiency, asking pointed questions about resource allocation and return on investment. He showed mild interest in the technological advances, but dismissed the cultural exchanges as frivolous. It was during the medical research presentation that everything changed. Dr. Martinez was explaining the breakthrough treatments they had developed when alarms began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed everything in red, and the automated systems announced a reactor breach in the Veltar section of the station. All personnel evacuate Sector 7 immediately. Radiation leak detected. This is not a drill. Chaos erupted in the conference room. The prince's security detail immediately moved to escort him to his ship, but he waved them off. "I want to see how you handle this crisis," he announced. James activated his communicator. "Status report? Admiral, we have a cascade failure in the Veltar antimatter containment system," came the frantic voice of Chief Engineer Park. 3 Veltar researchers are trapped in the chamber. The radiation levels are lethal, and our emergency systems can't reach them. Human environmental suits aren't rated for that level of radiation, Commander Torres reported grimly. Prince Thekvar listened to the exchange with interest. "An unfortunate accident. The researchers will be honored for their sacrifice to science." "No." The word came from Dr. Martinez, and everyone turned to look at her. "The human suits aren't rated for it, but if we modify them with the Veltar radiation shielding technology..." "That modification has never been tested," Chief Park's voice came through the comm. "It could fail catastrophically." "Then we test it now," James said without hesitation. "How long do we have?" "Maybe 20 minutes before the containment completely fails and we lose the whole sector." Dr. Kethmore stepped forward. "Admiral, those are my people trapped in there. I should be the one to attempt the rescue." "Your suit isn't any better protected than ours," James replied. "But if we work together..." What followed was the most intense 20 minutes in the station's short history. Human engineers and Veltar scientists worked side by side to modify environmental suits with hybrid shielding technology. There was no time for proper testing, no time for safety protocols. James suited up alongside Dr. Kethmore and 2 human technicians. Prince Thekvar watched in apparent disbelief as they prepared to risk their lives for trapped Veltar researchers. "Admiral," the prince spoke directly for the first time since the emergency began. "You are risking human lives for Veltar personnel. Your queen would not order such a thing." "She's not ordering it," James replied, checking his suit systems. "We're volunteering." "But why?" James paused in his preparations and looked directly at the prince through his helmet visor. "Because they need help. Because it's the right thing to do, because that's what people do for each other." The rescue took 12 minutes. The modified suits held, though barely. They brought out all 3 Veltar researchers alive, though 2 required immediate medical treatment for radiation exposure. In the aftermath, as the station's medical teams worked to treat the injured and engineers worked to permanently repair the damaged reactor, Prince Thekvar found James in the observation deck, where this had all begun. "Admiral Chen," the prince said, his translator carrying a tone James had never heard from a Veltar before. "I came here expecting to find evidence that cooperation with humans was making my people weak. And what did you find?" "I found that your people risked their lives to save Veltar they had known for only months. I watched human engineers share their most advanced technology freely to solve a Veltar problem. I saw what my aunt meant when she spoke of strength through protection rather than domination. Prince Thekvar moved to stand beside James at the viewport, looking out at the stars. For 1,000 cycles, my people have believed that strength comes from the ability to take what we want from others. But today, I witnessed strength that comes from giving what others need. It's not weakness to help each other, James said quietly. No, I am beginning to understand that it may be the truest form of strength. The prince was quiet for a moment. When I return to Veltar Prime, I will recommend to the High Council that this cooperation program be expanded to every system in our empire. James felt a surge of hope, unlike anything he had experienced since this whole adventure began. Furthermore, the prince continued, I will propose that we offer full membership in the Veltar Empire to any species that wishes to join us as equals rather than subjects. A galactic federation instead of an empire? Why not? If humans have taught us anything, it is that the whole can be greater than the sum of its parts when those parts choose to work together. As they watched through the viewport, human and Veltar personnel continued their work on the station's exterior, their environment suits making them indistinguishable as they labored side by side to build something unprecedented in galactic history. Admiral Chen, Prince Thekvar said finally, my aunt told me that you saved her life 50 years ago, asking nothing in return. That's right. I believe you have now saved something far more valuable. You have saved 2 entire civilizations from a war that would have destroyed the best of both species. James smiled, watching a human engineer help a Veltar scientist replace a damaged sensor array. I think we saved each other. And in the observation deck of Installation Unity, an alien prince and a human admiral stood together, watching the future take shape in the starlight around them, built on the simple human principle that the strong protect the weak, and the revolutionary Veltar discovery that true strength comes not from conquest, but from the courage to change. The silence stretched between them, filled with the weight of memory and the implications of this impossible reunion.